If you play a lot of games, you've perhaps heard the term live service game. These are online titles that, once released, receive ongoing support from their developers, constantly and consistently adding new content for players to sink their teeth into, built to be played in perpetuity. Think your Destinys, your Fortnites, your Seas of Thieves, that sort of thing. However, some live service games are less successful than others, and in the end, their roadmaps of new content are ripped up, battle passes are shoved in a drawer and forgotten about, and promises of ongoing updates are shattered. So players are left with unfinished games, or, in cases of server shutdown, no games at all.
In a hurry to die?
Just consider these 7 live service games that died much, much faster than planned.
We just give up. We didn't give up, Tony. We failed. At least I can admit that. No, we failed him.
Marvel's Avengers didn't have the best start when, upon being revealed to the world, everyone went, "Sorry, what's with their messed up faces?" But while they didn't have the likenesses of the popular Disney MCU Avengers, developer Crystal Dynamics did have a long-term plan for their game.
Launch is only the beginning of this adventure.
Marvel's Avengers delivers a narrative over multiple years, with exciting new content released at a regular basis.
And by multiple years, we now know they mean 2.5 years, which is technically multiple years. Because Marvel's Avengers was released in August 2020, and the last update is going out in March 2023. So why is it coming to an end so soon? Well, when Marvel's Avengers arrived, it made less of a splash than a rock thrown into an empty swimming pool. While the single-player narrative following Ms. Marvel reuniting the Avengers seemed promising, it was merely an introduction to the main bulk of the game, online multiplayer missions which you could take on with other players or AI. These were repetitive, and unlocking levels and cosmetics was slow-going, grindy, and honestly not worth it half the time. Oh my god, Tony Stark is a billionaire, wouldn't he just buy this stuff? Oh, that's what they wanted us to do. A lot of full-price games are packed to the gills with unwelcome microtransactions these days, but the ones in Marvel's Avengers seemed especially egregious. The pre-launch promise of no pay-to-win items was broken in 2021 with the introduction of XP boosts, and hero skins were not seen as particularly exciting and even outright despised. Most recently, fans were rightfully cheesed off when a new premium skin for Thor was released, which was the same as a previously released outfit, but just without a helmet. Couldn't that have been an option in the menu?
Oh, and it cost $14, or just a $5 if you already owned the one with the helmet.
Oh wow, bargain. Sorry, how much did I pay for this game again? Marvel's Avengers not only pissed off its fans, but failed to keep players engaged. Looking at Steam, there were over 28,000 peak players at launch, but within a month, this dropped to around 1,000 players logged in at any one time. The game ended up making a loss for publisher Square Enix. Even when new story mission Cosmic Cube came out, Steam online player numbers merely showed a brief jump up to 10,000.
Cosmic energy is building up.
Which, compared to a game like Destiny 2, which can average 60,000 Steam players 5 years after launch, is pretty low. And when Square sold off developer Crystal Dynamics, this signaled that the game had never turned into the long-term cash cow they had hoped for. After March, there will be no new updates and the cosmetics marketplace will close, with the now worthless paid-for currency being converted into a different made-up currency as per this baffling grid of bullshit, and Crystal Dynamics giving the full library of marketplace cosmetic content to players for free. Oh my god, free cosmetics? That's like any game released before 2013.
Protectors of our world, this is your time.
It's fair to say Destiny and its sequel changed the gaming landscape. This vast online-only sci-fi shooter series debuted in 2014 and was probably the most mainstream a live service game had ever been, showing players and the industry at large how exciting it could feel to hunt, loot and battle in a persistent world defended by fellow guardians.
Look out! Whoa!
Unsurprisingly, other publishers were keen to get some of that success for themselves, but at this point a problem presented itself, namely that a game like Destiny takes ages to make. So by the time EA's Anthem came out in 2019, the concept of clocking in daily to an online looter-shooter felt less like a cool new experience, and more like EA asking you nicely to start working a second job.
We are freelancers.
Oh, sorry, freelancing. Is that distinction a tax thing, or...? At launch, reviewers criticised Anthem's missions as too repetitive, often feeling frustrating, and with the best stuff held back for the endgame. Months later, EA confirmed sales expectations had not been met, and that it had projected to make more money from microtransactions than it actually had.
Never give up.
Ready, Javelin 1?
Let's go!
You are freelancers.
A year after launch, in February 2020, developer BioWare said they were ditching all their original plans and commencing a complete reinvention of Anthem. The goal? To overhaul loot, long-term progression, and create a more fulfilling endgame. An ambitious move, but an exciting one. Come on, lads, let's fix this thing! It's February 2020, good times could be just around the corner. As you're certainly aware, good times were not around the corner at all. And a year later, in another blog post, BioWare confirmed the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic had effectively ended the Anthem reboot, and that no further development on the game would take place, putting Anthem on the pile of effectively dead live service games a mere 2 years after it launched. And of course, being freelancers, no severance pay. Damn it.
From here, you have 2 different paths to victory. Become the sole survivors or hold on to the crown for 45 seconds. You are now prepared for the Hyperscape, contender. We here at Prisma Dimensions hope you enjoy your stay.
Back in 2016, Battle Royale game PUBG was released. Then in 2017, Fortnite released its Battle Royale mode. Then, hot on its heels, came Hyperscape in 2020. Yes, at one point, every game developer and their mum was trying to cash in on Battle Royales. But Ubisoft was later to the party than a birthday clown who'd been given bad directions. Releasing a game in an already saturated market is hard enough at the best of times, but this was compounded by Hyperscape releasing just as Ubisoft workers were rightly calling out toxic work cultures within various Ubisoft studios, meaning the game was overshadowed on multiple fronts. In order to try and tempt players away from other similar battles royale, such as the hugely successful Apex Legends, Hyperscape did have some unique gameplay elements. Sadly, one of these elements was being extremely difficult. Hyperscape did have some genuinely fun mechanics in there, but with an inadequate tutorial and no ranked matchmaking, anyone just joining the game kept getting killed before they could actually do anything exciting, which isn't great when your potential player base can just run off to one of a bajillion more accessible titles, one of which has Goku in. In October 2020, just 2 months after launch, Ubisoft acknowledged they'd made Hyperscape too hard, saying, "We always intended for Hyperscape to have a high skill ceiling, but it is clear from our data that the floor is also too high." To translate, if Hyperscape was a building, the entrance would have been 7 stories up with no stairs. Ubisoft made an array of changes to encourage people to stick with the game, and not abandon it straight away like my New Year's resolution to stop f***ing swearing all the f***ing time. But none of it seemed to be enough. As lobby numbers dwindled further in 2021, Ubisoft lowered the maximum number of players in a match from 100 to 60. But even then, players rarely found themselves in games with more than 25 players. Like everyone who had uninstalled Hyperscape after being killed moments into a game for the 10th time in a row, Ubisoft finally admitted defeat. They abandoned this foray into Battle Royales, and the servers shut down on the 28th of April 2022, less than 2 years after launch. Seems like Hyperscape was a hype mistake.
Boo!
Ready, set, Chocobo!
If there's anything in video games I'm wholly invested in, it's chocobos. And not just the plushies, which I'm assured can only increase in value, but the concept of chocobos as a whole. These adorable, squeaking, squawking birds are a mainstay of the extremely long-running Final Fantasy series, where they've become so beloved they have spawned several of their own spin-off games, including 1999's Chocobo Racing. So imagine Chocobo fans' reaction upon finding out that the vintage kart racer would be getting not only a sequel game on Nintendo Switch, but one that, in the modern way, would feature a story mode and themed seasons where you could unlock rewards, new characters, and extra content as time went on. So the game always felt as fresh as a newly washed Chocobo.
Claim awesome rewards with new rewards each season. You'll be on the edge of your seat.
But as you've probably guessed from the fact that it's entry number 4 on a list of live service games that quickly died, the Chocobo GP story is not a happy one. When the game was released in March 2022, it was criticised for its ruthless deployment of microtransactions, which made it extremely tough and long-winded to unlock anything cool, unless of course you paid real money for in-game Mithril, one of several made-up currencies tied to a complex, grindy Season Pass mechanic. Which is not ideal, but these days just the sort of thing you have to expect from free-to-play games.
The game cost £40.
I'm sorry, what? Responding to the understandable outrage over Chocobo GP's Season Pass situation, publisher Square Enix promised to tweak the Mithril economy, but presumably didn't manage to tweak it to the point where anyone wanted to buy huge heaps of revenue-generating Mithril, because in December of that very same year, Square Enix quietly binned off any future development of Chocobo GP and stopped Mithril sales, disappointing any players who were holding out hope that this cutesy kart racer would become an enduring Mario Kart competitor, regularly updated with new tracks and characters. I could have told you, Square Enix, the only way to get rich off Chocobos is in the aftermarket for plushies. I mean, just look at these climbing eBay prices. Oh no, the bubbles burst. I'm ruined.
I'm a wolf, raised to be the alpha, but trained to follow. Alas, the beast can't be tamed that easily.
When Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint was released, it didn't cause much commotion. And no, that wasn't a joke about it being stealthy. It was just bad. Unlike Marvel's Avengers, Breakpoint did have the face of an actual Marvel hero, but the rest of the game felt like it was held together with paperclips, presumably because Ubisoft had spent all the budget on getting John the Punisher Bernthal's jawline just right. Money well spent, to be fair.
The only test of a man's worth is battle.
But despite how great John looked and the promise of regular special in-game events and additional content further down the road, Breakpoint was not well received at all when it arrived in July 2019. It was so broken, so full of microtransactions, and had strayed so far from the Ghost Recon formula that not only were new players put off, but hardcore Ghost Recon fans hated it too. Instead of a full Ghost Recon experience, they had a bare-bones map packed with played-out open-world activities cribbed from every other Ubisoft sandbox game. And the number of enemy camps players had to clear out was nothing compared to the number of bugs they had to deal with. The situation was so bad that 3 months after Breakpoint came out, Ubisoft released a statement with a new plan for the game, saying they had taken player feedback to heart. And they laid out a new roadmap for the game that included a lot of updates. And by updates, they meant fixing the damn thing so it becomes a functioning game. It seemed like things were surely on the up for Ghost Recon Breakpoint, but then you remember, this is Ubisoft we're talking about. And they Ubisofted it right up by announcing Ubisoft Quartz, which added something shiny and new to Breakpoint that everyone was super excited about. Oh no, wait, they were NFTs. To which most players said, no flippin' thanks, but in stronger words, because I'm still trying to swear less. Ubisoft began flogging NFTs in the form of some truly dull in-game items, complete with unique serial numbers apparently visible to all, such as in a tiny font on your character's forehead that no one will notice unless they're pressed right up against your face. But hey, Ubisoft said, if you got bored of your boring grey item, you could then sell it on to another player, which may have been more attractive a prospect if you couldn't already do this before NFTs and also for real money. The backlash against NFTs meant that this was a disaster for the beleaguered Breakpoint, but good for the environment when it turned out they only sold 15 of these NFTs. Score one for planet Earth. So, mere months after these NFTs dropped, Ubisoft also dropped all support for the game on the 5th of April 2022, less than 3 years after release. I guess NFT stands for not thinking it through. I imagine. I'm not looking at what it actually means. I've got a life. A
common theme of these failed live service games is that they're shut down once publishers realise that, oops, they're not actually that, popular. Not so with Splitgate. Blending Halo-style multiplayer shooting with the portals from Portal, Splitgate was officially launched in 2019 in early access as a free-to-play game, but became very popular very fast in mid-2021 when it came out on PlayStation and Xbox consoles. Probably because it's Halo-style multiplayer with portals. So, yes? Yes. Blasting past 600,000 downloads in a week, Splitgate's popularity quickly grew to server-collapsing levels as players embraced its frenetic, mind-bending combat, which lets you perform incredibly stylish, physics-defying kill streaks, I imagine, if you don't suck at the game. Away from the bullet-riddled arenas, Splitgate was kept fresh in the same vein as other live service shooters, that is to say, with purchasable season passes that paved the way for unlockable cosmetics, loot, and XP boosts. In the wake of Splitgate's sudden success, developer 1047 Games secured $100 million in funding, but the game's popularity would prove a double-edged sword.
Lost the lead.
In September 2022, a little over a year after the game hit consoles, 1047 Games announced it would be halting development on its indie hit, citing issues with retrofitting and live operating a game that began as a, quote, college dorm project, and likening the struggle to bailing water while trying to keep everyone who bought a ticket on board our ship happy while also trying to turn our boat into a rocket ship. A metaphor so confused it suggests things really must have been quite challenging. 1047 Games stopped making new content for Splitgate to focus instead on a new, as-yet untitled, free shooter set in the same universe, and released what they called an Infinite Battle Pass, free for everyone and with unlimited tiers. Meaning that even if Splitgate has seen its final update less than a year and a half after it got popular, it's at least been left in a state where you can keep playing and unlocking new stuff and performing elite acrobatic kills.
Lost the lead.
I imagine.
Asymmetric games can be a lot of fun. Consider Dead by Daylight, the popular asymmetric horror game that sees one player taking control of a powerful horror baddie, chasing after 4 players controlling helpless survivors. Wholesome fun. Other games deployed the asymmetric multiplayer concept less successfully. Take Evolve, published by 2K in 2015 and created by Turtle Rock, the same development team behind Left 4 Dead. Evolve was a multiplayer hunting game that asked the question, what if the hunter could also be the hunted? In it, up to 4 players hunt down a horrific beast, while another player played as that beast and fought back. Ooh. But those oohs quickly turned into uhs when excitement for the game started to wane well before launch. One problem was that this full-price game was also monetized out the wazoo. Evolve had so many different pre-order bonuses that IGN had to make a page detailing what you could get from which stores in the US, and Kotaku merely took a screenshot of the press release showing all the different bonuses, editions, and season passes, posted with the caption, "Video games." Ouch. The year before Evolve's release, developers said the game was designed from the ground up with DLC in mind, which somewhat annoyed and worried players who had planned to spend $60 on the game already. This was likely Turtle Rock's badly worded way of explaining their version of the live service model, that they designed the game to make it easy to slot in new maps and monsters over the coming years, keeping it fresh for players so they keep playing for longer, just like Dead by Daylight has been doing for the last 6 odd years. But then, Evolve was released with over $60 of skins and cosmetics for sale on day one. Evolve? Day one is a bit early to be adding new paid content, especially paid content that costs as much as your actual game. The overcomplication and overpricing of everything left a bad taste in a lot of players' mouths, and put many off trying the game for fear of how much they'd have to spend. Industry commentators likened these pricing models to free-to-play titles and wondered why publisher 2K hadn't gone for that in the first place. Even for those who did buy in, Evolve player numbers quickly dwindled, as some players found the gameplay too repetitive or unbalanced, and the maps not quite as exciting as they'd hoped. To try and reignite interest, a new version of the game was launched, by the name of Evolve Stage 2, but only for PC. Which sucks for console players, but if it's any consolation, this PC relaunch did not reignite enough interest in this already maligned game. And at the behest of publisher 2K, ongoing support for the game ended in October 2016, just over 1 year after the original game launched. But you know what started in October 2016? This channel! And we promise we won't hunt down you and 3 of your friends. If you subscribe.
So those were 7 live service games that sadly are no longer live because development has halted, and as such they are dead now. I know, Ellen, I know. Still your tears. Still your tears. Anthem may yet return.
No, God, no.
Oh,
Anthem.
Okay, all right.
No.
All right, no, yeah.
Burn it.
Okay, wow.
In the sea.
Burn it in the sea. That's going to be...
Burn it and throw it in the sea.
Right, well that's going to have to be the order because I'm not, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Can you think of any other examples of games, live service games that didn't quite make it? Let us know in the comments below if so. And hey, if you want to go the optional extra mile in supporting the video work that we do here, then why not check out our Patreon? There is a link on screen now, and also maybe take a little gander at these other videos here because we think they're pretty fun. Ellen honked because I said gander. It took me a minute to process what had happened there, but I've caught up. Bye!